Air right center, well hit, way back, Velasquez looking up, and De La Cruz has hit it out, a grand slam, and the Marlins go up 5-2. 2-1 to Grisham is hit high in the air, right field. Anderson's under it and makes the catch. Runner tags at second, wants third. Andy, what a throw! Wendell the tag! Got him! Lefty versus lefty, the 0-1 to Wendell. Ground ball, first base side, past the dive of Freeman into right field. The Marlins are going to take the lead. Burdick scores, Rojas scores, Andy to third on a double by Joey Wendell, and it's 2-1 Miami in the sixth. Peralta, the 1-2 to Avi. Swinging a fly ball, center field. Taylor's going back. He's onto the track. He's at the wall, leaping, and it's a grand slam for Avi Garcia in his return to Milwaukee. Garcia, an eighth-inning slam, and the Marlins go up 4-2. The 1-2 from Rogers. Swinging a fly ball, right center field. Yastrzemski is under it. He makes the catch. Runner tags from third. Throw to the plate's going to be cut off, and the Marlins are walk-off winners for the first time in 2022. They've completed their biggest comeback of the season, down 4-0 into the bottom of the fifth, a 4-run fifth, and a run to walk it off in the bottom of the ninth, and the Marlins have beaten the Giants 5-4.
Welcome, everybody, to Fish Stripes Live. This is a very special episode. We will be having Glenn Geffner on, but before we get to him, some breaking news. As many of you already know, Miguel Rojas, the longtime member of the Marlins and a elite defensive shortstop, is heading it back to where it all began for him. He's heading back to the Dodgers in exchange for a shortstop prospect, Jacob Amaya. There's a lot of mixed reactions to it. You've probably seen the reactions on Twitter. You've seen the reactions all over. We'll get the reactions of everyone around the room. We'll start with Isaac.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting this today, especially when we spoke with Kim Ng. You and I did, Noah, and she even mentioned Miggy Rose, someone that could maybe see time at first base. But at the end of the day, they traded him alone, a 1-for-1 trade to Los Angeles for a prospect, Jacob Amaya. And they pretty much traded Miguel Rojas for a 20-year-old, 24-year-old version of him. A great defender, has some pretty good upside with the stick. But, yeah, you assume he starts at AAA. But, enough can't be said about, the impact that Miguel Rojas has had on the Marlins since being here in 2014, that big trade with Dan Herron. And he has really just been, the epitome of a teammate, of a clubhouse leader, you'd think, for the last 8 or so years. So it's sad to see him go, but if he's going to go anywhere, I'm glad it's to Los Angeles.
Eli.
It's the same team they got him from originally 8 years ago. He's grown quite a bit as a player. And I think this was a pretty clear position that all signs pointed to them trading either Rojas or Joey Wendell. One of the two. They had a lot of balls in the air, and they get the return they wanted for Rojas. Because we should talk about Amaya. He kind of fits in a lot of ways. He's in some ways comparable to the type of player they've been targeting over the last 6 months with Jordan Groshans and Xavier Edwards. The big difference for this guy is his defense. He played almost exclusively shortstop last year in the upper minors. That's a position of need, obviously. They could have patched it together this year with Miggy Rowe and Wendell, but beyond that, there's a lot of questions about who's going to fill that spot. We've seen how expensive it is to get a shortstop of the future, and the Marlins are not likely to go that route, which means keep taking shots at guys that could potentially put it all together and be an everyday type of player. With Amaya, he has a shot to do that. He's coming off a really good year in the upper minors. He doesn't have a whole lot left to prove down there. And he might not make the opening day roster. If he doesn't, he could come up very soon after that. This guy is just about major league ready.
All right. Now, before we get to Kevin, First off, we want to wish him a happy birthday. It is his 18th birthday today. He has now reached legal manhood.
Yeah.
And just a happy birthday from everybody here at Fish Stripes. And
Thank you.
hope you
Thank you.
enjoy it. And you see the message from Andres Bolivar. And now, Kevin, your thoughts on the trade?
The Marlins made a move. That's a great gift. Yeah, I did not expect this. I will not lie to you. I thought Joey Wendell was the one on the way out. I'm kind of glad it's not Joey Wendell. I wanted to keep the lefty bat in there. There's not much to say. Miguel was a great guy on and off the field. Did a lot of work with communities and all that stuff. You know, known as the captain, Capitan, for many years. Great defense. He was a Gold Glove candidate this year. Not much more to say. You guys, Isaac and Eli covered basically everything else. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a bigger trade. I thought maybe we would have seen more names involved. Surprised it's a 1-for-1 swap, but Miami now gets rid of $6 million in Miggy Rowe's contract. So
$5 million.
$5 million. All right, you shut off $5 million. You bring in a pretty good shortstop in what is Jacob Amaya, who is currently the number 15 prospect for the Dodgers according to Pipeline. So 14% walk rate, 23% strikeout rate. Not bad. Not too shabby.
All right, we'll go to Grant.
Yeah, I mean, not much more else to be said. And, anyone who's followed me on Twitter as of late has seen that I've been dropping tidbits here and there about roster moves. But this was one I really did not see coming. I kind of had the sense that Rojas' time was somewhat coming to a close. I didn't think he'd get traded this soon. I thought he would be on the opening day roster. As mentioned, Kim Ng mentioned him as a potential first baseman. But it's just crazy how quick things can change. We had that press conference this morning, and I guess Kim got on the phone right after. So end of an era for sure, but excited to see what Amaya can bring. I mean, it literally is a younger version of Miguel Rojas with maybe a little bit more power. I believe it was 17 home runs he hit last year in the minors. Yeah. I mean, a lot of upside with that bat and a great glove. I think this is maybe the best offseason move the Marlins have made so far.
Alex,
Yeah, it's kind of sad to see him go. For the last few years, he was the mainstay on this roster. He was one of the few guys that has been here for an extended period of time. I could be wrong, but I think he might have been the last remaining teammate of Jose Fernandez that's still on the Marlins. Am I correct about that? So he was one of the few guys that's actually been here for a while. He was kind of the face of the rebuild, and the hope that this new ownership brought in. I know some fans may have soured on him in the 2022 season, whether it was deserved or not. I think you have to remember all the things that he did before then. Remember the 2020 playoffs. It was him and Mattingly both crying on the podium at Yankee Stadium. When they finally clinched for the first time since 2003. That was nice to see. He did mean a lot to this team and this franchise for the last few years. And, it's sad to see him go. As for Amaya, pretty much what you guys said, he's pretty much a younger version of Miguel Rojas. One thing that I did notice, and I don't know if this will carry over from the minors, he's great against lefties. I would be interested to see if he did reach the majors sometime soon, if he would be a platoon role. He hit batting average was 320 versus 240 against lefties, and his OPS against lefties was 964 compared to 736 against righties. So we'll see what happens, but sad to see Miggy go, and I hope the best for him in LA.
And to close it out, Alex Carver.
Yeah, you guys pretty much said everything. With Miggy, I know, like Alex just said, there was mixed opinions on him in 2022. Neither here or there on that, in my opinion. Don't really have much to say about that. But before that, man, this guy did a lot for this team, for this organization as a whole. Turnover, like you guys said, pretty much year after year. It was Martin Prado who was the captain, passed it on to Miggy. Been here ever since. I wrote in 2021, I just retweeted a little while ago about how he was mentoring prospects off the field in 2021. And basically what he said about it at that time was that, hey, if I could teach one guy how to do it the way that I do it, and then it can carry over, to the next guy and the next guy on those rosters that they're going to join when their season begins, That's the impact I want to make. So you hear stuff like that from a guy that was a true leader for this team for a really long time, and helped other guys out and becoming leaders themselves. So it's bittersweet to see him go, but you do get a good player back in Jacob Amaya. I think this guy hits to all fields. I think he's really solid in the field. He plays shortstop mostly, but he can also play second base and third base if you need him to. But yeah, he is a true shortstop who will definitely stick at shortstop. Will he hit enough in Major League Baseball to be a full-time starter at shortstop? You have to see what he did later in his minor league season this year permeate. Really solid ending for him with AAA, which was really good. 14% walk rate, as you guys said. It is hitter-friendly in the PCL, so kind of want to see how it permeates. Maybe he gets a spring invite and we see a little bit there. What he can do against Major League stuff will be intriguing. But yeah, I like this player. I like this trade. I think this is one of their best moves that they've made so far. I do agree with Grant on that fact. I think this is really good. You trade 1 year of Miguel Rojas, and you get back 2 option years in this player who is very good by the looks of it in the field and could be good at the plate as well. So I like this trade. I think it's really good. Bittersweet to see Miggy go, but that's baseball. So here we are.
The one thing I wanted to add is now with the Smooth, there's a 40-man roster spot open, which I believe that would be for Johnny Cueto whenever that signing is made completely official.
Well, let me step in. This is just an even swap of one 40-man guy for another.
Oh, he's on
Amaya's
40-man?
already
Okay,
on the 40-man with the Dodgers. So at the moment, you're correct that with the Cueto signing, that's still pending because they do need to get one person off still from that. You're right about that.
Okay.
But with Amaya, yeah, he's in this situation where his clock is kind of ticking in terms of when he's going to get an opportunity. And it seems to be a better spot for him with the Marlins, if not this year, then certainly next year. Shortstop will be wide open by then for him. So it's an interesting play. And just some final notes on this. I mean, Miggy, he's still not like 1,000% healthy from the wrist injury, the one that he had surgery on over 3 months ago. He's been trying to play winter ball, and he hasn't been able to do it yet because he's still feeling it a little bit in that. So I have not seen the absolute latest. I don't know if this is totally done yet, but I think they need to go through that physical to be sure that Miggy is, going to get back to normal for the Dodgers next year. That's a pretty important consideration. And then aside from that, I just wanted to single out his 2020 season, the shortened season. It's a very small sample, but the way that he performed that year just was insane. The way that he was one of the best hitters, as a shortstop in the whole league during that 2020 season. They don't make it to the playoffs without him. They barely made it in, and they made it in because he was the best hitter on the team this year against all odds, in addition to kind of keeping guys in the right mindset in the midst of obviously a very difficult situation. So he'll be best remembered for his longevity with the team and his intangibles. In that particular season, it was his performance that got them to the postseason, only postseason berth of the last 20 years for this franchise. And that alone has made a pretty big impact in the way that people feel about this team. That kept people hooked on this team a little longer than they might have otherwise, knowing that they had that fleeting success with him directly in the middle of it.
And he hit the only home run in the division series for the Marlins that year in that postseason as well.
Oh yeah.
I thought they were about to go to the NLCS after he hit that, and he nuked that thing to the tracks. I was screaming at a socially distanced Buffalo Wild Wings. That was the time to be alive.
A really quick note for you guys before you get Glenn in here on Amaya. Fangraph says that he's one of the more polished bats in minor league baseball in terms of his approach and ability to make contact. So you love that. Love to hear that. You kind of see it in some of the highlights that Isaac has been posting. I put out a couple too. This guy's could be really good. So I think this is definitely an advantageous deal for Miami. Probably the best of the offseason.
All right. I think it's now time for the main event. Let's bring in Glenn Geffner, everyone's favorite. I clicked the button. Welcome, Glenn. How are you doing?
The main event, huh? Just a little bit of pressure. All right. What's up, guys? Great to be with you.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming on.
So for those of you who don't know, and if you don't know who Glenn is, I don't know what you're doing here. Glenn is the former radio voice of the Marlins for how many years? 10 years?
15.
15.
Yeah. 15, yeah.
I didn't do my research. I'm sorry.
15 seasons.
15 seasons and was recently let go. We'll get into all of that. But I do want to start with, I want to get Glenn's reaction on the trade with Miguel Rojas going the other way. Well,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, outside of the little that I've read in the last few minutes, I don't know a whole lot about the player coming to Miami other than the numbers that I've seen on him, and it looks like he's a good prospect. From Miggy's perspective, to me, it's kind of bittersweet. One, I'm really happy Miggy gets to go somewhere where he's got a chance to win immediately. In recent years, especially, all he has wanted to do is be a part of a winner. He's going to get that chance right off the bat in Los Angeles. But that said, I think he's going to be a little bit disappointed because he's one guy at a time when it's been hard to find players who embrace playing in Miami. This is a guy who loved being a Marlin, who loved being a part of this community, who understood his role in the community, on the ball club, in the clubhouse. So I'm sure it'll be bittersweet for Miggy as well. He had a nice run here, and hopefully he can win a ring in Los Angeles, and hopefully Amaya can do nice things for the Marlins.
All right, so we'll start with the news, to current events. You started another teaching this semester at FAU. Just what are you looking forward to with that, and just with teaching in general?
Well, I love teaching, and it's something I've had the opportunity to do in recent years at Florida Atlantic University, teaching a sports broadcasting class there. I've done a lot of mentoring over the years, young broadcasters, high schoolers, college students as well, working a lot at Northwestern, my alma mater, working at Cornell University, the Big Red Sports Network, a student-run broadcasting program there that got off the ground about 10 years ago. I've been really active on an advisory board with them. And in addition to my work at FAU, and a new semester just started today, 20 great students, excited to get going. You guys may have seen also, I rolled out a new program about a week ago where I'm going to take this teaching to a whole nother level, hopefully, and do one-on-one play-by-play coaching for high schoolers, for college students, and for young professionals just starting out who want one-on-one play-by-play training. The website's easy to remember, glengeffner.com, Glenn with two N's, Geffner with two F's. And the response in a week, maybe a little less than a week, has absolutely floored me. It's been quite something. People from all over the country kind of leaping at this opportunity. It's one-on-one. It's not a group of 18 people. It's you and me, one-on-one sessions via Zoom. So wherever you are, we can do it. And so far, the response has been great. So a lot of teaching going on these days at FAU and now through this online program at glengeffner.com.
Well, me personally, I was begging my father to sign me up for it, but we'll look at that in the future. Now, I want to get to.
It's an investment in your future, Noah.
I want to get to the elephant in the room. Most of us were shocked earlier on in the offseason when the Marlins parted ways with you. Can you explain to us what happened?
Yeah, I'm going to start on a positive note, if I can, Noah, and that is the response since that day has been overwhelming. It's been so gratifying. It's made me feel really good from fans, from colleagues, people across the industry, on social media, emails, texts, whatever, hearing about people who have written letters and called their sales reps. And not that it's going to make any difference, but it means a lot. It means more than anybody can know. I saw what you guys did actually the night that the news came out, and that meant a lot. There have been some other podcasts that have done similar things, and I can't tell you guys individually, collectively, and everybody out there who's reached out one way or another, people I know through social media, people I've never met before, how much that's meant. It's been incredibly, incredibly gratifying. And if there's a bright spot to all of this, that's really it. And I appreciate it immensely. I think it speaks to the bond that broadcasters can have with the fan base, and with a franchise that has had so much turnover over 30 years. It's really disappointing that wasn't appreciated, quite frankly. And look, the bottom line is things have been different. Things were different for me over the last 5 years since the sale of the team. Look, go back before the new group even took over, when the first move they made was to have David Sampson let go the two most popular people to ever wear a Marlins uniform in Jeff Conine, who they recently brought back, and Jack McKeon. They said goodbye to 2 Hall of Famers, Andre Dawson and Tony Perez. 6 weeks after they took over, Rich Waltz was out the door, which was even more shocking, I would imagine, than my news. Stunning at the time. As the years went on, Todd Hollingsworth was gone. Dave Van Horn was forced out quite unceremoniously a year ago, in a way certainly unbecoming of a Hall of Famer who's devoted more than 50 years of his life to the game. So I was the last man standing among the English language broadcasters from when they came in. And quite honestly, they, for a couple of years, froze my salary. They cut my salary nearly in half at one point a couple of years ago. They brought it back up a little bit last year with Dave out of the equation and me back doing the full schedule. I could see this coming, quite honestly. Just the lack of appreciation for what we do on a nightly basis. When a new vice president came in with this group, and literally in the first one-on-one meeting he and I had, told me, I know nothing about broadcasting. Those were his exact words to me. And he said the exact same thing to Dave Van Horn in a one-on-one meeting and to others in one-on-one meetings. Some of the changes that were forced upon us, some of the things they hoped to do direction-wise in the broadcast that just didn't sit well with me. Honestly, it wasn't a huge shock to me. It was disappointing. It was sad as somebody who has worked half the seasons in this franchise's history now, 15 of the 30 seasons, as somebody who grew up in this community. This meant a lot to me. And I left the Boston Red Sox right after winning the World Series to come home to work for the Marlins in 2008, at a time when there was uncertainty surrounding the future of the ball club. No idea at that point if there's going to be a new ballpark or not. But, I'll forever be grateful to Jeffrey Loria, David Sampson, PJ Loyello for bringing me in, for their generosity to me and my family, the way they treated us, the way they treated everybody in the organization. And the bottom line is, fans care about winning. I understand that, but things changed 5 years ago. You've seen so much turnover in the organization. You've seen a lot of really good people, a lot of senior level people who have departed one way or another. Even a lot of the people that the new people brought in, including a couple who I think had a chance to make major impacts here. Chip Bowers and Adam Jones were forced out eventually. So it is what it is. I'm collateral damage in all of it, and I'm disappointed. I'm sad. I don't have a single regret about how I approached my job over the 15 seasons I was here. Nothing but wonderful memories. But it was a little bit different the last 5 years, and it's going to be different moving forward. I think you're going to see changes to the broadcast. I'll be honest. I'm concerned about the future of baseball on the radio in Miami, because of the lack of appreciation for what it means and what it's all about. You could see no radio at all a year from now. You could see a simulcast. You could see internet only at some point before too long. And the other thing, and again, I'm being open and honest with you guys. One of the things that has been talked about, and I do want to defend myself on one thing, where the only thing anybody at the Marlins has said publicly about this, nobody at the Marlins even acknowledged my departure other than taking me off the website. But somebody leaked the line that it was thought that maybe I was too statistically oriented. They wanted a more conversational broadcast. And I'm going to defend that to my death. This broadcast, especially over the last 2 years, working with the rotation of analysts, has been nothing but conversational. And when somebody says maybe it was a little too statistically oriented, this is where this comes from. And I guarantee you 1,000,000% this is where this comes from. This team's losing 90 plus games a year. Things have not been going well on the field the last few years. And so you talk about the Marlins getting picked off more than any team in the league when it happens. You talk about somebody being 3 for 72. Quite honestly, they'd rather not have that. And I never harped on negativity, but you got to tell the truth. And there has been talk from the vice president who oversees broadcasting that what he'd like to see really is more of a talk show than a traditional play-by-play broadcast. The reason for that is because you don't want to focus on the 3 for 72 or the runner at third with nobody out that you can't get in or whatever, good things, bad things. You'd rather have, from this perspective, the game going on in the background, and now let's spend 3 innings with the VP of marketing, and now let's spend 2 innings talking about what's going on down on the farm. And that stuff's all well and good, and we've done plenty of that over the years. There's a time and a place for that. But I'm very much of the opinion that people who turn on a baseball game on the radio, particularly in a market like this that has been quite challenged in attracting a fan base for 30 years, people want to hear about the ball game. They want to know what's going on in the baseball game. And that's what I brought to the broadcast every night. So, for somebody to say they wanted more conversational, it could not have been more conversational than it has been the last 2 years, especially with the analysts. I could go on for a lot longer. I know we have a limited amount of time, but you asked the question, Noah, and that's kind of my perspective on a lot of things that have happened since the middle of November.
Yeah, you mentioned the part where, they probably didn't want the bad statistics being read out loud, which obviously makes no sense to me. Would you say it was comparable to when they, obviously different ownership, but when they got Tommy Hutton? Because I believe it was for similar reasons that they wanted to move on from Tommy, that he was just saying things that the players didn't want to hear about themselves and the fans didn't want to hear about their own team.
Yeah, and look, you own the team, you get to make those decisions. That's the bottom line. We're all employees. But I challenge that notion, and I certainly challenge the notion that anybody could ever suggest that there was ever any malice in what I was doing beyond reporting the facts. And often, I feel like while I wouldn't say I was ever a shill for the Marlins, I was always a glass half full guy. And you look for the positive in things. And I'll go back to the different things that have happened, in recent years. I can think about specific plays, and you say, boy, this really stunk, this happening with a young player in this situation. But hey, if it's a learning experience, if this mistake doesn't happen the next time, this could be a positive for a Marlins team that's trying to build and grow and develop, for young players who you're trying to get acclimated to the big league level. So, usually when things were said like that, they were said in that context. But I'll also say this: no one ever came to me and said, hey, you're too negative. Hey, you're using too many negative statistics. And I use positive statistics also. And I told stories, and we were conversational. We talked about the game, broke down the game. So, I think that's kind of an excuse that somebody can throw out there. But the bottom line is this: I got a phone call with this news. And that's a bit frustrating also. I'll say after 15 years in this job that they didn't have the courage to do it face-to-face, to call me on the phone one day, the day they knew Sandy was going to win the Cy Young Award. So they figure, well, this won't really make a big splash because we're going to do it an hour before Sandy gets the Cy Young Award. But when I asked for a reason, I was told we've decided to go in a different direction. And I asked, can you tell me what the direction is and why I'm not the best suited person taking that direction? I just can't tell you any more than that, was the answer I was given. Look, there are financial ramifications to this. The bottom line is they're going to be saving significant money with whoever's in the booth in 2023 relative to 2022. I wasn't breaking the bank. I wasn't making anything close to what a utility infielder makes. It's pennies in the dollar when you talk about the business of Major League Baseball. But they're looking to save money everywhere they can. And again, I'm part of the collateral damage here.
Right. And you mentioned receiving a phone call. You got that call in mid-November, right? You didn't get it right at the end of the season. That's what bugged me the most, because you've been very transparent that, you're still in the prime of your broadcasting career. You are still, at least in our opinions, as good as anybody at doing this, and then you want to continue doing it for somebody. And by that timing, over a month after the season ends, that really frustrated me. That's unfair to you. Where if they're ready to move on, and you want to move on to something else, and if they don't really give you the fairest opportunity to find whatever that next full-time thing is.
No, I hear you. And I agree with that, Eli. The person who made the phone call told me that I'm not the person to take them in this new direction. Last September, I sat in a meeting with him talking about this year. And this is the same person who told me he knows nothing about broadcasting. Says, in the last 4 or 5 years, I've watched and listened to a lot of Major League Baseball broadcasts. And his words to me were, and nobody does what you do. This is the guy who just told me they're moving on without me. Nobody does what you do. Nobody brings the information and weaves the stories into the broadcast. Nobody does what you do on a daily basis. And I was praised for the way I've incorporated different partners. This year, working with 6 different partners. In the first 16 games of the season, I had 6 different partners. At one point, I worked with 4 different partners in 4 days. And I embraced it. And I loved playing point guard. I really did. And I enjoyed working with each and every one of them. And it was a challenge. It was a lot harder than it ever has been in the past, trying to bring out the best in everybody and trying to bring along a lot of these broadcasters that had a lot of experience. but I think we made the best of it, and I think it was really good radio. I really do. And so, like I said, I don't regret anything I've done. I'm very proud of the work we did, and obviously the response from fans when the news came out reiterates the fact that we should all take a lot of pride in what we were able to do, and I wish them all the best moving forward.
Glenn, can you just speak to dedication? We've talked about it before amongst each other because we've seen it with our own eyes. I talked about it a couple years ago where I got to spring training. I thought I was the first person there. And there you were with your binder and your laptop at like 7 a.m. for a 1 o'clock start, right? So how important is dedication in a role like this? Like how much does a future broadcaster need dedication like you have in order to do what you did here?
Well, it's funny. Today was our first class at FAU, and a lot of it today was very introductory type stuff. This is what we're going to do over the course of the semester. This is how we're going to do it. But at the end of class, I told them lecture number one, the big one, the first big lecture on Friday is going to be about preparation, because before you can broadcast a game, you need to know how to prepare to broadcast the game. And preparation was a huge part of what I've done throughout my career. And I take great pride in the fact that I showed up to work 162 times a year and was prepared on the last day of the season when you're 32 games out of first place, the same way I did all the same work on day 162 as I did on day one and opening day when you're tied for first place, or in 2020 when you're doing the playoffs, or whatever it may have been. And I love that part. I love the homework. I love whether it's finding the stories, helping to humanize players, statistical stuff, anecdotal stuff, whatever it may be. My goal was always to bring something to the broadcast that nobody else has. That's why I don't use game notes and I don't use media guides. My partners use game notes and media guides. The guys in the TV booth use media guides and game notes to a certain extent as well. I want to have different stuff, though. I don't want my partner having the same information I have. I don't want Sevy on TV having the same information I have. I want to bring something different every night. And so that, Alex, goes to preparation, which is a year-round thing. And I'm still working right now. I don't have a team to call my own at the moment, but I'm preparing, for all 30 clubs, following everything going on in baseball as close as I can. Between us, among friends, I'm actually talking with a couple of clubs right now. I had one team call me literally 24 hours after the news broke the next day. And literally, I think 24 hours to the moment I sent the tweet out, I got a call from one team, talking to another team right now as well. And look, something may happen, it may not happen. This is not a great off season to be looking for broadcasting jobs in baseball, particularly for somebody who's done pretty much exclusively radio work over the years. But, we'll see what's out there. I'm hoping something happens. And if it's not this off season, maybe it'll be next off season. Prepared to move on without baseball, but hoping that's not the case. Because, again, coming back to where we started here, Alex, the preparation is fun. Talking to guys, finding out what they're working on, what they're thinking about, just what's going on in their lives, in their world, and helping to relay some of those stories on both sides to the people who listen every night.
Hey, Glenn. So kind of building off of what Alex said here, as a young broadcaster myself, this industry is booming with young people, but a lot of people don't really know how to get their start, what to choose a major in college, where to go to college. So what would you say to 17, 18-year-olds kind of in the college search right now, just how to get opportunities, how to put your name out there, and how to network and build connections within this industry?
I would say if we even think about college, GlennGeffner.com is a good place to start. And we'll go one-on-one. But no, it's a great question, Grant. And, I was very fortunate when I went to school at Northwestern. I got involved with the student radio station fall quarter freshman year. And for 4 years, was able to broadcast football, basketball, baseball games, do talk shows, learn some of the technical stuff. For anybody's college decision, you got to find a place where you feel comfortable. You step on a college campus, you want to feel like I feel at home here. So that might be a big school, might be a small school, might be in a big city, might be in the middle of nowhere. But if you want to broadcast, you've got to find a place where you can get on the air. And hopefully we can get on the air as quickly as possible. And so ask those questions at the student radio station through student television. What kind of opportunities are there? What kind of opportunities are there for freshmen right out of the chute? There are some really good broadcasting schools where you don't really get on the air till you're a junior or a senior. And you're kind of a smaller fish in a big pond. I'd rather be a bigger fish in a small pond and find where I can get an opportunity immediately. For example, I mentioned this program I'm involved with at Cornell that a student actually from Miami who I met when he was in high school as an aspiring broadcaster. He went to Cornell. They didn't have opportunities for student to broadcast games. This student began this Big Red Sports Network all by himself back in 2012. Now it's a decade later. He's still involved in an advisory role. He works with Boston Red Sox right now, no longer in broadcasting, but in baseball. And this program is going strong. And this one student who wanted to broadcast started all by himself. But the big thing is, and I say this as somebody who teaches sports broadcasting, there's only so much you can learn in a classroom. You've got to go out and you've got to get real world experience. And it's never been easier to do that because all you need is an iPhone or a laptop to broadcast anything you want to the whole world right now. And so you got to get experience. And if you can do it in a formal setting at a college radio station, TV station, that's ideal. Try to get internships, try to meet as many people as possible. The more you do it, the better you're going to get. When you have a sample of work that you feel pretty good about, reach out to people in the industry who you respect. Not all of them are going to get back to you. Some of them might give you, 2 sentences of feedback. Some of them might write paragraph after paragraph of feedback. But reach out to people you respect. Look for their feedback. Develop relationships with some of those people. You never know where that might lead. And the bottom line is, so if you want to call games, you got to call games. And the other thing I'll say is you may think you want to work in baseball, but if you have a chance to do football or basketball or hockey or soccer, whatever it is, volleyball, lacrosse, get as much experience doing as many different things as possible to maximize your options down the road. You just don't know where the future might take you. So get as much experience doing as many different things as possible and see where it goes.
It was good to hear that once again. I opted to do the smaller school thing instead of going to Syracuse or Georgia over two. I applied to go to Ohio University, and those opportunities are coming in. So good to hear that, Glenn.
That's great. Yep. Go Bobcats.
Now I think we've got a question from the birthday boy, Kevin.
Yeah, happy
What's up?
18th, by the way, Kevin.
Oh, thank you, Glenn.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, 15 seasons with the Marlins. You've been through the good, you've been through the bad, you've been through everything. Amazing calls, great games. How do you want to be remembered in your 15 seasons as the Miami Marlins play-by-play for the radio?
As somebody who showed up and did his job every day and was passionate about the game, passionate about the team, and honestly did everything in my power to try to advance the cause of the Marlins in Miami. And, it's been an uphill climb the whole way, but, I remain as optimistic as I can be, as glass half full as I can be. And, I just really appreciated the opportunity. I grew up in this community before we had Major League Baseball, dreaming that one day I'd get to call Major League Baseball. Little did I know I'd eventually get to do it in my own hometown. So that's very special. So, yeah, I don't anticipate being remembered decades from now, but I enjoyed what I did while I was here, and I put in the work each and every day.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right, Alex Krutchik, I think you had a question.
Yes. Hi, Glenn. You mentioned before that you're worried about the future of baseball radio down in Miami. If you don't mind, what does that entail exactly? What exactly do you envision for the future of that?
Well, and it's not just in Miami, although I am extra concerned about it in Miami with just what we've seen, the way the radio broadcast has been handled in recent years. Look, you've seen a couple of years ago, the Toronto Blue Jays went to a simulcast for half a season. They used their television broadcast on the radio. After half a season, they realized what a disaster it was, and they went back to 2 individual broadcasts. I think in the NBA and the NHL, there are a couple of teams that simulcast right now. I predicted this actually coming out of COVID. I predicted that with people seeing that games can be broadcast remotely, I think a lot of us in the industry screwed up by doing a pretty good job broadcasting games remotely and making people realize, hey, we can save some money here potentially. And you even see some of the networks now, not all the time sending broadcasters to college football, college basketball games, things like that. Yeah. But, I worry about games going potentially online only, although to me, that's not the end of the world because most people listen online nowadays anyway. But I do worry about teams doing away with radio broadcasts altogether, going to a simulcast, or even, and specific to Miami, as I mentioned before, going away from what I would call a traditional radio broadcast. To me, if somebody's tuning in on the radio, they want to know what's happening in the game. You can get away with talking about other things throughout the game on television because people can see what's happening on the field. People always have the score and the inning and where the base runners are, how many outs are. That's constantly in front of them. You can't do a talk show on the radio with the game going on in the background, though. And I'm afraid that's where they'd like to see it headed. And look, if the team is winning, I think their perspective on that might change a little bit. But as long as you're struggling the way this team has for the most part, I actually looked this up. I take pride in this and I feel awful about it. But since the start of the 2008 season, there's literally no broadcaster in baseball called more losses than I did. And you can look that up. The Marlins, the Orioles are neck and neck in losses since the beginning of 2008. But the Orioles don't have a broadcaster who's gone the distance and done the full season year in and year out. So, it's you'd like to see that change. And maybe then the perspective on what the radio broadcaster should be talking about will change. But, it's hard to ignore another one-run loss. It's hard to ignore another pickoff. It's hard to ignore another runner at third with less than 2 outs who gets stranded at third base, things like that. So to me, that's part of the story when you're telling the story on the radio every night. And I think the majority of people around the industry understand that, Alex, but I do think there are some organizations that are a little more cost conscious than others that are looking to cut some corners. And I'd be concerned about radio and the future of it here and in a handful of other places.
Yeah, Glenn,
The thing that you mentioned really quick, Noah, the thing that you mentioned about painting the picture, like you can't see it. So like something that Glenn, that you always did that I really appreciated was describe what uniforms the teams are wearing. Like you always did that in the first inning. Describe how a guy's setting up in his stance, what he's doing in between pitches. You have to paint the picture because on the radio, when you're driving home from work, which is how I usually listen to you, and then of course I turned it on when I got home, but I could see it on my TV that I had muted. But anyways, what I mean is you have to paint that picture for those of us who can't. You're not looking at it. You can't see it. So what's happening? And how can you
try
describe
to straighten
that?
my picture right now? Actually, I see I'm a little crooked here.
How could you describe that if you're having a conversation about other things? So I don't know. Yeah,
well, to me, that's the beauty of baseball on the radio. And I've done some TV over the years, not a lot, but I've done some. And I keep running back to radio because I love that challenge of painting the picture, of the description, of the ballet of the game on radio. I really take a lot of pride in that. And it's different than a TV broadcast. People may not, the casual viewer / listener may not even realize that. But, on TV, you can get to shortstop, Rojas to first, 2 down. But on radio, ground ball to the right of short, Rojas backhands, plants, long throws, gets him by a step.
Whoa.
It's a different call on radio than it is on television. And you got to paint that picture. And people who do baseball on the radio really well are really good at doing that. Look, I grew up listening to baseball on the radio in Miami back in the days before the Marlins existed, when WIOD used to have the Yankees games every single night. All 162 Yankees games were on the radio. And I would fall asleep every night, literally listening to Phil Rizzuto and Bill White and Frank Messer and picturing on a late night, they're in Anaheim tonight, and what the ballpark must look like. And the sun is setting and the wind is blowing out toward the right. And the Angels are wearing this uniform and the Yankees are wearing the traditional traveling grays. And I loved hearing that. That's what I grew up with, really, because look, I'm 50. I was going to say 53. I just turned 54 actually a couple of days ago. But I grew up, I was 10 years old when ESPN was born in 1979. I grew up really listening to baseball on the radio much more than watching it on TV. I'm at the very back end of that generation of people that really grew up listening to the game on the radio more than watching on TV. Everybody younger than me grew up with more than just the game of the week on Saturday afternoon on NBC and Monday Night Baseball on ABC. They grew up with any game you wanted to see on ESPN and TBS, WGN, and all that stuff. And now you can pick up your phone and watch every single game in baseball, every single game in the minors. So I grew up with baseball on the radio, and very few young broadcasters now did. And that's one of the reasons why, everybody wants to do TV. Look, TV is more glamorous. I get it. There's more money in TV. I get that. But there's a real romance to baseball on the radio. And when I teach play-by-play broadcasting, we start by doing radio play-by-play, because you can go from doing radio and then pull back and do TV where you speak a lot less, but you gotta cut your teeth doing radio and learning how to do that description and paint the picture. And that's a part of the job that I really definitely embraced.
So yeah, along those lines, when I'm listening to a game, I'll specifically seek out the radio broadcast. I'll sync it up. And when I'm listening to hockey games with Doug Plagens doing the radio for the Panthers, and he'll always go with the Panthers going left to right or right to left, just setting the scene. That's something that is honestly required for my watching experience. Just having somebody describe what's going on and sprinkle in a stat here and there. So
it's the Marlins in the third base dugout, the Mets on the first base side. It's the right-hander up in the bullpen. It's the pinch hitter coming out to the on-deck circle. It's the size of the runner's lead off of first base. It's, in this day and age especially, where the defense is set up. 3 defenders on the right side. That changes next year. But how deep are the outfielders? Are they swung around toward right field? It's all that stuff that helps the fan understand. And when you talk about the right fielder being shaded way over toward the line, and all of a sudden somebody rips a line drive right down the line, but he's there to make the play. You set that up by telling people in advance where the right fielder is positioned. You talk about the runner off to the 4-step lead, and it looks like he's extending a little bit. And he breaks for second. You've set that stuff up. So that's the fun of it. That's why I love baseball on the radio. And if somebody called me tomorrow and said, hey, we want you to do TV, at this point, sign me up. But I'll always be a radio guy at heart without question.
Yeah, speaking of the radio part, you had like 2 different styles, because when you were with Dave, it was he would do the first and second inning, just him, and then you third and fourth inning, and so on. And then you sort of had a color analyst next to you for all 9 innings. Which style did you prefer? Sort of doing your own inning, you're the only one talking, or having a rotation of color guys like JP and Kelly?
I love working with Dave. Dave was a great mentor, a great friend. He's a Hall of Fame broadcaster. And we worked side by side every day, I guess, for 12 seasons. Yeah. And then the 13th year, they split us up. And then I had the analysts after that. Maybe I'm off by a year in that. But I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed breaking down the game. I enjoyed the player's perspective. I think it makes for better broadcast than having 2 play-by-play broadcasters side by side. I would chime in with some color during Dave's innings. Dave would chime in with some color during my innings. But it's different. It's different when you hear a former player say something. I can give statistics as a color analyst. I can give anecdotal information. But I'm a little reluctant to get 2 X's and O's because it just doesn't sound right coming from a play-by-play guy. And I said this to the analysts I work with at the very start of the season, each one of them individually. I said, I'm going to ask you questions. I know the answer to the question, but it means more when those words come out of your mouth as somebody who was on the mound, was in the batter's box, was behind the plate, and somebody who played the game. So I really like that perspective. I think it adds a lot to the broadcast. And like I said, I could not be prouder of the work we did under some very challenging circumstances the last couple of years. First, when they broke Dave and me up, and then just last year working exclusively with the different analysts.
So I know you said that they wouldn't tell you what the future is for Marlins radio, but the general consensus is that Kyle Seeloff will be the play-by-play man going forward. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on Kyle as your successor. I know you and him have spent a lot of time together on the road and throughout the season. Just your thoughts on him as your successor and him in general.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate. Believe it or not, I don't get a lot of inside information from the Marlins these days, so I'm not entirely sure where that's going to go. But I wish Kyle all the best. I've got nothing bad to say about Kyle. And, somebody's loss is his opportunity. And I hope he takes advantage of it. And I hope things work out well for him. I wish him nothing but the best.
I guess one question I wanted to ask you before we hopped on here. I obviously, I'm sure people have asked you your favorite memory or your favorite call. I want 3, if that's okay with you. 1 from the old ballpark, 1 from 2012, the new ballpark till the end of the Warriors game, and then 1 under the Sherman Jeter regime. So 3 total. 3 favorite memories of calling from those. If you can't, sorry.
Wow.
I guess you could go more than 3.
I think
but
Isaac
at least
just
3,
won.
ideally.
No, I like those 3. Like
that's-
1 in the Sun Life, 1 in the Loria Marlins Park regime, and then 1 in the Sherman regime.
Oh boy, my first couple of years, 08 and 09 in the old football stadium, those were really the 2 best teams
Absolutely.
that we had here in the 15 years I was here. Those were 2 really good teams, and great guys to talk to, great guys to interview. Freddie Gonzalez was tremendous to work with as the Marlins manager. I live in this alternate universe where, and I've told Freddie this, Freddie could still be managing the Marlins. It was kind of weird when he got let go, when he was let go in 2010. If things would have gone a little bit differently there, there's a scenario where Freddie could still to this day be managing the Marlins if things would have gone a little bit differently. But boy, that's an interesting one. It's funny, I think back to the Josh Johnson, Roy Halladay duel at Sun Life. Halladay threw a perfect game and won that game 1-0. Cameron Maben misplayed a fly ball in center field, allowing the only run of the game to score. And I've said over the years, if Maben catches that ball, we might still be playing the way JJ was pitching, as well as Halladay, who threw the perfect game that night. I remember, was it back-to-back home runs to walk it off and
Against
beat Kevin Gregg and the Cubs at Sun Life? Maybe
Ugla
Cody
and
Ross and Josh Willingham. Was it? Or Ugla and Ross? Okay. Yeah. There are a lot of great memories there. Yeah. Boy, I'm on the spot here. You go to the new ballpark era. Certainly, there was such anticipation going in. I remember the Gabby Sanchez walk-off hit in extra innings to beat the Astros for the first win in the new ballpark. I remember. I'd like to say I remember every single time Jose Fernandez took the mound in that ballpark and the extra buzz that you had in those games. I remember the last game Jose pitched was he said the best he ever pitched in the major leagues, that win over the Nationals when he went 8 terrific innings, got Jason Worth out in a big spot to end the 8th inning. And we never saw him pitch again, unfortunately, after that. I remember the Dickerson and Cooper home runs in the playoffs against the Cubs. They were on the road at Wrigley Field in 2020. Yeah. Those are 2 moments that certainly stand out. And I know I'm forgetting a lot of things. We've had no hitters. We had Ichiro's 3,000th hit in Colorado. It was a privilege for me to call that, as much as I respect Ichiro. I know I'm leaving things out. Maybe if you gave me a couple of days, I can get back to you with some better answers. But those are the first things that come to mind.
Yeah, those are great.
And I know as soon as we hang up, I'm going to think of some more.
Yeah, no, those were awesome. Those are awesome. Thank you, Glenn.
All right. Does anybody else have anything they want to add or ask?
I can ask a closing question on my behalf. Glenn, thank you for doing this. This was awesome. But what I will ask is, I had Eric Bremer. I run a podcast of my own outside of Fish Stripes. I had Eric Bremer, who's the broadcaster for Pensacola, on my show just a little bit ago. And what I always like to ask broadcasters, I'm going to ask you too, what I always like to ask broadcasters is kind of what Grant was asking you before. As Grant knows, and I'm sure you know, there's competition when it comes to talking about a sport or baseball for your job, because who doesn't want to do that, right? So what I want to ask is this, as you look at going into your next role, something that Eric told me that he prizes and that what he did to set himself apart is be authentic and be himself. And through doing that, he was able to let his audience know, when I'm excited, I'm excited. I'm going to be the same guy when I'm not on the radio as to when I am on the radio, right? So that was something that he said he did. So how important do you think authenticity is, especially as you look forward to getting to know a new fan base, most likely here as you go into your next venture? How important do you think it is to be authentic and be yourself when you're on the air and when you're not?
Now, first, I want to go back and watch your conversation with Eric. I've known Eric since he was in college at Northwestern. I've known his dad, Dick Bramer, the TV voice of the Twins, for a long time. And it's a reminder that there are a lot of really good broadcasters in the minor leagues, and Eric is one of them who will hopefully get a shot sometime soon. I'd love to see Eric get some games with the Marlins. I know I'd had some conversations with people about getting him at least on some spring training games in 2023. We'll see where that goes. But I'd love to see Eric Kramer get a shot. Scott Kornberg, who does the games in Jacksonville, Lisa Pride, Larry Larson. Lisa's in Jupiter, Larry Larson's in Beloit. Marlins has some great broadcasters in the organization. Authenticity is everything. And actually, we talked about that day one in class today at FA. You got to be yourself. And you can't try to be Vin Scully. You can't try to be Jim Nantz or Al Michaels or Joe Buck. You've got to be yourself. And especially doing a sport like baseball where it's every single night. You're on the air for 3 hours, 3.5 hours, 162 nights a year, plus spring training, plus hopefully the postseason. If you're anything but authentic and yourself, it's going to be pretty obvious to people. So, you want to bring your personality to the broadcast within reason when possible. You need to be your authentic self. And I think that's a great piece of advice from Eric, who, like I said, is the guy who's going to be doing big league games, hopefully really soon.
All right. So I think that's all we have. Glenn, just personally, thank you so much for coming on and joining us.
I think John has it right in the comments. He says, you, Phalo Ramirez, Dave Van Horn, Yiki Quintana, the Mount Rushmore of Marlins radio.
Wow.
I think that's apt. I mean, it's not. You
I
were
can handle
here
that.
all these years for a reason, and the way that you adapt to like all these different circumstances, all these different players, and one thing I wanted to point out is that unfortunately, like with this organization, is a coincidence with Miguel Rojas getting traded today. It's just that the lack of continuity with the players. It's so unique and it's so hard on the fans, and I feel like it's really unusual. I would say that people follow this organization and they can't count on that continuity from the roster, but they find continuity in unusual places, like in the broadcast booth.
Well, you'd like to think so. And like we talked about, Eli, that's changed in recent years, unfortunately. There's not the continuity in the front office. There's not the continuity in the broadcast booth. And look, I know you guys, we all have opinions about things. And you got forums to express your opinions about things that go on the field. Fans express their opinions about things that go on the field. I'm one who feels strongly, and I'm sure you guys would agree with this. Fans don't make baseball decisions for a baseball team. Kim Ang can't make a trade or not make a trade because of what she fears the public backlash is going to be. But there are certain things where I think really good organizations do listen to their fans. And when fans have a bond with broadcasters, that ought to matter for an organization. When fans tell you year after year, hey, we love the teal, bring back the teal, let us wear the teal a few weekends a year. Those are the kind of things, to me, you listen to fans on. And, it's disappointing. I understand fans aren't going to decide when to hit and run and who to start in game 3 of the series. But there are things where, your customers know what your customers want. You don't know what your customers want more than what your customers know. And whether it's a bond with broadcasters, whether it's uniform style ideas, things like that stuff matters. And it helps you build a fan base. It helps you have a connection. And you're right. The continuity thing is weird and it's disappointing. It's frustrating. And I hope at some point it gets figured out. But I'm concerned that, we're no closer to that today than we were 5-6 years ago. And that's too bad.
I think the last time we had Glenn, ironically, was the day that Miguel Rojas was extended. His 2 years was extended.
Right around there.
We are.
It was.
The next time we have Glenn Geffner, he is traded to Los Angeles. So I thought that was apropos.
Hey, if we're getting ready to wrap up, and I'll sit here as long as you guys want to, but I didn't want to end this without thanking you guys for this opportunity tonight, for all the conversations we've had, for conversations we've had one-on-one at the ballpark over the years. And you guys are always really supportive of me on Fish Stripes, on social media, and I'm grateful for that. You guys provide, and I've said this publicly before, but if this may be the last time I talk with you guys in this forum, I'm going to say it one more time. Nobody, and I mean that literally nobody, covers the Marlins more thoroughly and in a more interesting manner than Fish Stripes does. There's not a beat writer. There's not a veteran writer. There's nobody in 2023 that provides the variety of content, the amount of content, the quality of content, and interesting content that you guys do. And Alex, what you do with the Fish on the Farm also, I'm going to mention that separately, but at the same time, it's a tremendous service. And for a team that doesn't get the attention that the Red Sox do, or the Mets do or the Yankees or the Cubs do or the Dodgers do. What you guys do is invaluable. It's incredibly professional. And, you know, I think fans, and I hope fans appreciate it as much as they should. But, you know, I certainly didn't want to say goodbye to you guys tonight without sharing my appreciation for it and going on the record on that.
I think
Thank you, Geffner. Someone's cutting onions.
the one thing that I envision happening when in the immediate aftermath of the phone call to and your tweet, the immediate reaction of the fans and the immediate outpouring of support and utter shock of most of the fan base that they would even consider taking you off the broadcasts. I hope, and I really hope that whoever it was and that the organization saw that and realized, hang on a second, something's not right here.
Well, I'm sure they saw it, but obviously it's not going to change anything. And look, they've made other unpopular decisions. And again, it's their prerogative to make decisions. But, you know, the feeling is it's going to blow over at some point. And it is going to blow over at some point. Everything blows over at some point. You know, people were outraged with the trades that were made in 2017, 2018. And, you know what? You forgot it. Time passes, heals all wounds. And this is already forgotten, but I appreciate, again, Noah, what each of you guys said individually, collectively, and what all the fans have said and done, and letters that were written and phone calls that were made. It's unfortunate that people aren't impacted by that, but that's kind of the way it is.
All right. Thank you so much, Glenn. For everybody at Fish Stripes, thank you so much for coming on. We'll be back next week with another guest or Jeopardy. I don't know. We're planning.
You ever need a contributing writer or something, let me know. I'll hook you up with my agent. We can make a deal, guys. All right?
I can't afford you.
I'm looking for work. All right, guys. This is a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you all for watching. Good night.
Yeah. And once again, happy birthday to Kevin.
We got to end it off right. We got to.
Happy birthday.